Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down complex topics using the source material itself. Today, we're going to talk about financial crises and how, no matter how modern they feel, they're actually following a script that's, well, ancient.
So, to get our heads around this, let's just rewind a little bit to some words that probably sound very familiar. First up, subprime mortgages. Yeah, that one. It was all over the news back in 07-08. These super high-risk loans that were right at the heart of the whole mess.
And those risky mortgages, well, they led straight to this, the dreaded credit crunch. This is when the money just stops. The loans that keep our entire economy humming along, they just dried up. Poof. Gone.
And then the big one, names that felt like they were carved in stone, like Lehman Brothers. You thought they'd be around forever, and then they just weren't. Their collapse sent this shockwave across the entire planet.
So what was the answer? Of course, it was this, the bailout. Just a massive, all-hands-on-deck intervention to try and stop the bleeding.
And this is what we heard, right? Over and over again. Unprecedented times require unprecedented measures. The whole idea was that 2008 was a total one-off, something brand new that nobody had ever seen before, so we needed a totally new solution.
Unprecedented? But what if I told you none of this was new? Not even a little bit. What if all of it, the subprime mess, the credit freezing up, the bailouts, was just a replay, a modern remake of a story that's way, way older?
You heard that right. The playbook for our latest and greatest global financial crisis, it wasn't written on Wall Street. It was written almost 2,000 years ago, in Rome.
All right, so let's get into it. This is an ancient echo, and trust me, when you see how the crisis of 2008 mirrors what happened back then, it's kind of mind-blowing.
So the big question is, where do these things even come from? How does a crisis get started? Well, almost every single time, it begins with this, the search for yield. It happens when things are good, times of peace, prosperity, and all that cash has nowhere to go to get a decent return.
Yeah, this old quote from the 19th century just nails it. John Bull can stand many things, but he cannot stand 2%. It's a timeless human thing, isn't it? When interest rates are scraping the floor for a long time, investors get antsy. They get desperate, and they start taking on bigger and bigger risks to find those returns.
And this timeline just lays it all out. It's the same pattern over and over again. Back in 30 AD, you had Roman senators using land as leverage. Jump forward to the 1600s, and it's Dutch speculators going crazy over tulip bulbs. And then bam, 2006, investors piling into subprime mortgages. See, the asset changes, land, flowers, mortgages, but the human behavior, it's exactly the same.
But here's the catch. All these systems, they get so interconnected, so leveraged up to the hilt, and that makes them super, super fragile. All it takes is one tiny little spark to set off a wildfire.
And that wildfire is what we call the death spiral. Here's how it works. First, some trigger event happens. In Rome, it was actually an old, forgotten law that Emperor Tiberius brought back that forces everyone to call in their loans at the same time. So step 2, everybody scrambles to sell their assets, land, stocks, whatever, to get cash. But step 3, when everyone is selling and nobody is buying, asset prices completely collapse. And the final step, the credit markets just freezes solid. The whole economic engine just grinds to a halt. And this isn't just some abstract economic theory. Look at the numbers. This data, pulled from 15 big financial crises, shows the real human cost. We're talking stock prices getting cut by more than half, house prices dropping by a third, and unemployment just shooting up. The pain for regular people is absolutely real.
So this puts every leader, whether you're an ancient emperor or a modern-day central banker, in the exact same impossible position. You have a choice. Do you let the whole thing collapse, let it burn itself out and face a massive depression, or do you step in?
While Tiberius chose to intervene, and his solution, honestly, it looks like it could have been designed last week. He pumped 100 million sesterces from his own treasury into the system, offering interest-free loans. This was it. This was the world's first bailout. And it's the exact same playbook our leaders followed in 2008 with things like TARP, buying up toxic assets, and quantitative easing, just flooding the system with cash.
Now, to give you a sense of scale here, that bailout from Tiberius, it was huge for its day. We're talking about 1% of the entire GDP of the Roman Empire. Just keep that number 1% in your head for a second.
Because now let's flash forward to 2020. The U.S. government's response to that year's crisis was the equivalent of, wait for it, 25% of GDP.
2025. The playbook is identical, but the scale has gone nuclear.
And this brings us to a really crucial point. These bailouts, they don't just put out the fire. They fundamentally change the rules of the game forever. They rewrite the relationship between government and the free market.
You see, every time a government steps in, it sets a new precedent. Once the state shows that it's willing to stop a total collapse, that expectation gets hardwired into the system. Markets start counting on it. And just like that, government and markets are tangled up for good.
After 2008, this idea got a fancy new name, macroprudential policy. It's a whole new philosophy of regulation. Instead of just watching over individual banks, the goal now is to manage the risk of the entire system, to try and stop the dominoes from even starting to fall. It's basically what Emperor Tiberius was doing almost 2,000 years ago, just, based on instinct.
But think about what this quote is really saying. We are not just following Rome's playbook. We are speedrunning it. That's a pretty chilling thought, because with every crisis, the bailouts get bigger, they happen faster. The system learns to expect that safety net, which only encourages more risk-taking, and that just sets the stage for the next crisis to be even bigger than the last.
So when you understand this timeless loop, this cycle of boom, bust, and bailout, it forces you to ask a really big question. If the playbook never really changes and the interventions just keep getting bigger and bigger, are we ready for what comes next? What does this ancient Roman pattern really tell us about where our own financial world is headed?